Now, the collection log has been out for several months now, around 6 or 7 months, and one question that I always ask myself is, can it be completed? The amount of items on there is vast, and a lot of them are extremely rare. For example, we have pets, clue scroll reward items, and a ton of different boss drops. Now, originally I wanted to calculate the average number of hours that would be required to complete the collection log, but it was getting extremely complicated. So my next question is, will it ever be completed at all, or will it be completed in our lifetime? And I think the quick answer for those who don't actually want to watch is no, probably not. So what I'm going to be doing today is going through the collection log and determining the average number of hours required to complete each section, and then we're going to total up the amount of time and see if it is reasonable to complete or not. Anyway guys, hope you enjoy, and let's get started. Now, before I get started here, I wanted to make a few things clear. One, this is a ballpark guess at best. The time required to actually run simulations for all of these, like 1 million or 2 million times, would just be too long, so we're going to make some educated guesses, except for a few instances where someone already had ran simulations for probability, which someone did it for both Barrows and Raids 1. So because of that, we're going to be making a few assumptions that is most likely going to lowball the amount of time that is required, but in the end it doesn't matter too much. Now, one of the biggest assumptions that we are making here, just to make things simpler, is that for all of the PVM monsters or the PVM drop table, I'm assuming that by the time you have gotten the kill count to obtain the pet, you've obtained all of the other items. This just simplifies it a lot. Now, for example, Callisto has 4 drops that are on the collection log. However, the rarest one by far is the Callisto Cub, which is 1 out of 2,000. And I'm assuming that once you've obtained the Callisto Cub, you will have completed that section of the collection log. While that is not a guarantee, I think more often than not that will be the case for most of these monsters and will save us a lot of time attempting to calculate probabilities. And one last assumption before we get started here is that for Slayer only monsters, there is no downtime. You're just doing it on task. You're not waiting around to get a Slayer task or anything like that, and you have unlimited money. And the last thing I want to mention here is I'm not actually that good at math, so if there are some glaring issues, please leave a comment down below. I am still kind of interested in trying to calculate the average number of hours required to complete the collection log, even if it runs into the centuries. Okay, so first up here we have bosses. The first one up is the Abyssal Sire. Now, the pet drop for the Abyssal Sire is 1 out of 2,560, and if you can kill on average around 20 an hour, it's going to take you around 5.3 days of game time to get the Abyssal Sire pet. Next up here we have the Alchemical Hydra, and to get the Hydra pet it takes around 3,000 kills, and if you're getting around 25 kills an hour at the Alchemical Hydra, it'll take you around 5 days of game time to complete that section of the collection log. Now, next up here we have Barrows, and like I was mentioning earlier, someone actually simulated how many chests on average it would take to obtain all of the Barrows pieces. Now, I believe this was not taking into account that you could get multiple pieces per chest. However, the number that they came up with on average was 1,450 Barrows chests, which means that if you can do around 16 Barrows chests an hour at the high end, it's going to take you around 3.8 days to complete the Barrows collection log. Okay, next up here we have a Bryophyta, and that is kind of interesting as, well, the kill times aren't that long and the drop table isn't bad. All you need is Bryophyta's essence. However, I'm going to be including the time it takes to collect the mossy keys, which you don't get many. I would say maybe 2 per hour. And the fact that you get more on the Slayer task isn't really relevant, as if you're actually grinding this out, getting Moss Giant Slayer task isn't really viable. So I'm going to say 2 keys per hour plus 2 minutes a kill is going to take you around 2.5 days to get the Bryophyta's essence. Okay, next up here we have Callisto. Like I was saying earlier, 1 out of 2,000 drop rate for the Callisto Cub. If you can get around 20 kills per hour, it's going to take you 4.2 days to complete Callisto. Next up here we have Cerberus, which has a drop rate of 1 out of 3,000 for the Hell Puppy, which is by far the highest one. Getting around 35 kills an hour, it's going to take you around 3.6 days to complete Cerberus. Again, assuming that you are constantly on the Slayer task, as it is required to kill the puppy. Next up here we have another interesting one, which is the Chaos Elemental. I believe this is one of the quickest pets to get in the game, as the drop rate for the pet is only 1 out of 300. Apparently with a cannon you can get around 40 kills an hour, which means that getting this pet would only take you around 8 hours. But even if you half that, you could still get it in under a day. However, the Chaos Elemental also drops the Dragon Pickaxe, which you do have to get them independently for each boss, so I'm going to say that it's going to take a full day in total to complete the Chaos Elemental. Next up here we have the Chaos Fanatic, which is the only monster to share a pet Once again, I'm assuming that you can get 40 kills an hour. The drop rate is at 1 out of 1,000, so I'm assuming that it's going to take, again, about a full day to complete the Chaos Fanatic. Okay, next up here we have one of the first long ones here, and that is Commander Illyana. Now the drop rate for the pet Illyana is 1 out of 5,000, so it's extremely rare. And the amount of kills you can get here per hour isn't that high. I'm saying 15, and we're kind of assuming for a lot of these that you're going to be max the gear, extremely efficient, just to make things simpler. So 15 kills at Illyana, which means it's going to take you 14 days on average to complete Illyana. Okay, next up here we have the Corporal Beast, and this one was a bit challenging. Again, we're assuming that you're doing this as a solo, so you're not involved with a team. Now, I haven't actually done Corporal Beast, but I'm guessing you can get around 5 kills an hour with the cannon and POH method. And the drop rate for the pet is, again, 1 out of 5,000, which means it's going to take you on average 1,000 hours to complete, or 42 days of in-game time. Okay, next up here we have a nice short one, and that is the Crazy Archaeologist. No pet, so the drop rates are 1 out of 256, which means it'll only take you 5 or 6 hours to complete, if you get fairly lucky. Okay, next up here we have Daggermouth Kings, which have 3 independent pet drops from 3 different monsters, so it's 1 out of 5,000. However, we can just do that 3 separate times, which means in total to complete the Daggermouth King collection log, it's going to take you around 8.3 days. Next up here we have the Fight Caves, which really you're just looking for the pet. I'm assuming that you could do 2 runs per hour, although if you are skilled, you may be able to do 3. The drop rate for the pet is 1 out of 200, but since the runtime is so long, it's still going to take you around 4.2 days. Okay, next up here we have the Gauntlet. I'm not sure the drop rate of the pet yet, but the Blade of Saldor is 1 out of 1,000. Now I'm assuming that you can complete the Gauntlet in 10 minutes, although it most likely will take longer. But I'm assuming in the future we may find a way to get it down to around 10 minutes, which means in total it'll take you around 7 days to complete the Gauntlet. Next up here we have General Grador, which once again is a 1 out of 5,000 drop rate for his pet. And I'm assuming you can only get around 15 kills an hour once again, which means it's going to take another 14 days to complete General Grador. Next up here we have the Giant Mole, a pretty quick to kill boss. I'm assuming you can do 50 per hour. However, the drop rate for the pet is still 1 out of 3,000, which means it's going to take you around 2.5 days to complete. Next up here we have the Grotesque Guardian. The Noon pet is dropped at a rate of 1 out of 3,000, and assuming that you can kill around 25 an hour, which is quite on the high end. I have no idea how you do that many. It will take you around 5 days to complete. The Hespori is actually a fairly quick one, as if you are planting the seeds with minimal time loss, killing the Hespori does not take very long each kill. And the Bottomless Compost Bucket, which is the rarest item, is dropped at a rate of 1 out of 35, which I'm assuming will only take you around an hour or something to complete. Next up here we have the Inferno. The Infernal pet is dropped at a rate of 1 out of 100. I'm assuming that you can do runs in 1 hour and 30 minutes, so in total it'll take you around 6.25 days to complete the Inferno. Alright, next up here, Kalphite Queen. The Kalphite Queen pet is fairly rare, dropped at a rate of 1 out of 3,000. Assuming you can get 20 kills an hour, it's going to take you 6.25 days to complete. Next up here we have the King Black Dragon, which is the exact same thing, exact same drop rate, similar kills per hour, so yeah, again, 6.25 days. Next up we have the Kraken, which has 4 unique items on the drop table, but the pet Kraken is by far the rarest. You can get around 60 kills an hour here, and the drop rate's around 1 out of 3,000, which means it'll take you around 2 days. Next up here we have Kriara, which again, 1 out of 5,000 drop rate is really rare considering how many kills you can get per hour here solo. Again, assuming around 15, it's going to take you 2 weeks. Okay, we have Obor up here next, which is similar to Briofita, except I'm assuming that you can get the keys quicker as the drop rate is increased in the wilderness, which means I'm assuming you could get around 4 keys an hour with a cannon possibly. And a 1 out of 18 drop rate for Obar's Club means it's only going to take you around 1.5 days. Next up here we have the new boss Arachnus, 1 out of 3,000 for the pet drop, but it is a mid-level boss, so you can kill maybe around 40 an hour, so it's going to take you around 3.1 days to complete that. Next up here we have Scorpio, which has a drop rate for the pet of 1 out of 2,000. I'm assuming you can kill around 30 an hour, so it'll take you around 2.7 days of game time to complete. Okay, Cotizo. Now this is kind of an interesting one. To get the totem pieces almost seems impossible because they are very slow to get, but again I'm assuming that there's a 0 time method. You're just training Slayer anyway to obtain the totems. The rarest item is getting an uncut onyx, which is on the collection log at a rate of 1 out of 1,000, which would be an insanely long grind to get 1,000 totem pieces each. Maybe not even possible. So in the end it'll only take you around a day to kill 1,000 Cotizo. assuming that you had all of the totems obtained at a 0 loss time. Next up here, we have the Thermonuclear Smoke Devil, which has a pet drop, once again, of 1 out of 3,000. Now you can kill quite a few of these an hour, 65 an hour, so we're going to say it's going to take around 2 days to complete that. Next up here we have Addis, which is fairly slow to kill because of how tanky that she is. The pet drops at a rate of 1 out of 2,000, so we're going to assume it takes around 8.3 days to get that pet, as you're only killing around 10 per hour. We're almost at the end here of the bosses. Next up here we have Vedion, which is again 1 out of 2,000. You can kill more of these an hour, we're going to assume 18 an hour, so it's going to be 4.6 days for Vedion. Vorkath is 1 out of 3,000 for the pet drop. We're assuming again 25 an hour, which means it's going to take around 5 days. Wintertot is kind of interesting. The pet drop once again is 1 out of 3,000. Now a lot of people have this pet because so many people do Wintertot, but I'm assuming you can only do around 10 Wintertots an hour, which means it's going to take around 12.5 days to actually get the pet on average. That doesn't seem right. I feel like more people have the pet. And last up here, Zulrah. The pet drop is 1 out of 4,000. And a rate of 25 kills an hour means it's going to take around 6.6 days to complete Zulrah, which means in total it'll take around 224 days just to complete the PVM section of the collection log, and that is 224 days of game time. That is not including sleeping, which we could probably calculate that at the end. Okay, so that is pretty bad, but it gets worse, much worse. Next up here we have Raids 1, and somebody actually did run a simulation on this. They were assuming that the player got around 20,000 points a run. They were doing it solo, I believe, and they were doing 2 runs an hour. The amount of raids on average to complete all of the items is 3,400. Again, that is from a simulation, which again, if you're doing 2 an hour, means it's going to take you around 71 days just to complete all of the Raids 1 items. And just for simplicity's sake, we're going to assume something similar for Raids 2. You do need to complete at least 2,000 of each of these raids to get the Sinhaza Shroud 5 and a similar item for the Chambers of Zarek. But we're going to assume another 71 days for Raids 2 as well. Okay, so next up here is Clue Scrolls, and this is where I just couldn't really figure out the statistics. I am not a math whiz by any means, so we're making some pretty heavy guesswork here, but this is where it becomes almost impossible to complete the collection log. Okay, well first up here we have Beginner Clue Scrolls, which really shouldn't be that hard to calculate, but I'm kind of dumb. There are 15 unique items, and they're all dropped at a rate of 1 out of 375, and for Beginner Clue Scrolls you get 1 unique roll per clue. I'm just ballparking 1,000 Beginner Clue Scrolls to complete all of the unique items on the collection log, and I'm also assuming that you use Implings to obtain the scrolls, which means there's going to be very minimal time to obtain the actual clue scroll. I'm going to say with some maximum efficiency you could do maybe 40 beginner clues an hour, which because they are so quick I think is reasonable, which means it's only going to take you around a day or a day and a half to complete all of the beginner clue scrolls. Now next up here we have easy clue scrolls, and the rarest item by far here is the Monk's Robe G, which is dropped at a rate of 1 out of 14,000. Now one thing to keep in mind here is on average you're going to get 3 reward rolls per casket, which means that these drop rates are going to be a little bit better than that, but I'm just going to ballpark guess it's going to take you around 15,000 clue scrolls to complete the easy reward section of the collection log, and if you're completing around 20 clue scrolls an hour, it's going to take you around 31 days to complete. Now next up here we have medium clue scrolls, and while there are actually more unique rewards, the rarity is much less. Now there's over 100 unique rewards for a lot of these clue scrolls, so the probability is going to be extremely high that you get a ton of duplicates. But I'm kind of ballpark guessing that the rarest drop is 1 out of 2,266, and you end up getting 4 rolls per clue scroll, so I'm just guessing it's going to take you around 10,000 of the medium clue scrolls to complete, and at around 20 per hour once again, it's going to take you around 21 days to complete that. Okay, next up here is when things really get out of hand. And the reason for that is, of course, Third Age. Now, to complete the collection log, you need to complete the Third Age sets for each individual clue scroll tier, which means you'll have to get some of these pieces twice. The mega rare drop table is, well, just that, it's mega rare. And while you get 5 unique rewards per clue scroll, it's still an extremely slim chance that you're going to get anything. The drop rate for the Third Age pieces on the hard clue scrolls are 1 out of 211,000, and there are 13 unique items obtainable at that tier. Although you do get 5 rolls per clue scroll, I'm still just ballparking it at 1 million hard clues completed, most likely higher than that. And if you can complete around 10 per hour, and again assuming that you are using Implings, it's going to take you 4,166 days or 11.4 years of just doing hard clue scrolls. Elites are even worse because the drop rate of the third age is much rare, 1 out of 488,000. I just ballparked it at around 4 million elite clue scrolls completed, at again 10 per hour is around 45 years. Master clue scrolls are bad as well because you can't complete many per hour. I again ballparked around 4 million master clues required to complete all of the set, which if you can complete maybe 4 masters an hour, I'm not even sure if you can do that. It'll take you 115 years to complete that. Now I'm not going to bother with the rest of the collection log, as the amount of time taken to just complete the clue scroll section vastly outweighs any of the other parts of it, but I just wanted to give you a bit of an idea. My guess would be somewhere in the realm of 150 years to 200 years to complete the collection log, coming down pretty much entirely to the clue scroll items, which to conclude, the reality of completing the collection log is nearly impossible unless you plan on living a long time or have an insanely good luck streak. It will never be completed. I'm almost certain of it. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave it a like. I always appreciate it, and I will see you next time.